go forward and look into this. So guys, I have to emphasize we're focusing on the material or the content from Kanban University, and the author of the Kanban University. So in industry, there's so many things that come from different corners, but we have to make sure that we are where we are coming from. Okay, so Jishan, let's
Sure.
start with visualize of work, right?
You want to start? Sure, go ahead. Or you want to start?
Let's go ahead and start. Kick it off,
Sure.
Jishan. Yep.
Okay, I will try to connect the dot with one individual just mentioned the value stream here for the Kanban, and I'm trying to connect the dot with the value stream here. So first of all, value stream is not only specific to Kanban. Value stream can be applicable whether the team is working on a Kanban or not. It is at the bigger level. And let me give you one of the examples in one of the organizations that has the offices both in US and the UK, and we did the value stream mapping activity. And after the value stream mapping, they came to know, and we visualized everything in front of them. Okay, this is what they are working right now. This is what their current state is. And they came to know just by visualizing that organization has 6 applications who is doing something very similar. They were not even aware of that thing. So that actually shows you how powerful the visualization is, because a human mind, there is a research on this one. It's called the Miller's Law, in case if you want to research this thing. The human minds can only store 7 ± 2 objects in the short-term memory, in the current memory, working memory. So if there is a big flow, we cannot have in our working memory at the moment. So if we visualize everything in front of us, then it actually helps us to understand where we are right now. And how many times it happens to us, forget about whether we are using Kanban or not. So we are writing down the things so we will not forget. So in that particular case, we are writing in the form of visualization so we can keep everything, we will not miss the track. Now come to the Kanban. So visualization actually help us to make our whole work process visible in front of us. Sharat, do you want to add anything in this one?
Yep. So in Kanban, right? So how do we start? Where do we start, right? You have to set up the system. The system meaning the whole board and the team together working together, the system. You have to set up this system together to start working in the Kanban way of working, right? Whatever it is. So what does this visualization mean? So why do we use visualizations, right? For us to understand what work is in progress, how much work is being done, who is doing what risk do we have, what dependencies do we have, how do we highlight all of these things in a team, right? So we want to make sure that we visualize this board that in that way, whenever someone looks at this board, you have to understand what's happening in this team. That way you understand the risk, so you can help them with the risk. That way you understand the problems, so you can solve the problem. That way you know what is happening in the team, so you can work and help with the teams, right? The cards that you see, the board that is set up on the top is called workflow. You can set up that workflow, the backlog to do in progress testing and done. It's a workflow that you have to set up for your own team. It differs from team to team. You have to choose on that, and then you also see different colors of sticky notes there. Could be different, right? Could be a task, could be a bug, could be a story, could be something else, right? How do we know? So why is it important? It's because you can understand what's happening in the team. So the initial step of you going in your Kanban team to start your Kanban journey is to set up the board, and it's a continuous improvement process. Jishan, do you think we will get it for the first right time, Jishan? We have to improve the board.
Yeah, we can move on, but I just saw one comment that is connecting the visualization and transparency. I just want to make one thing clear, that visualization and transparency are two different things. Things can be visualized but not transparent, and vice versa, can be transparent but not visualized.
That's
and
a
we can have a discussion if we have a time. Yeah, we can have a discussion if we have a time. I just want to make this clear. These are two different concepts, closely related, but two different things.
Right. I know this is a tricky part, right? So, and going back to the visualization there, you could set up the board. It doesn't mean that on the very first time you get your 100% visualization in the right way, right? You set up the board, there might be some mistakes. You can continuously adapt and inspect and change the board. Start from where you are and then go continuously improve. When you remember back to the principles, right? So start and then continuously improve. So this is the first thing that I would do. If I'm a Kanban team, I'm going to go ahead and set up my workflow and my board and then visualize everything in the right way. This is the first step that I would do. So Jishan, what do you think? Did we kill the horse there in the visualization?
We can speak the whole day the importance of this one, but I wanted to discuss the next two principles together because those are going hand by hand. Because limiting the work in progress actually help us to manage the flow. So the outcome of limiting a work in progress is actually improve the flow, manage the flow. And let me give you one example. And we are discussing both at the same time. So let me give you an example. Like if I am trying to read too many books at the same times, I love book reading. If I'm trying to read too many books on the same times, then on average, completion of one particular book time is longer. Or another example, which most of us are familiar, if there are too many cars on the freeway, then on average, reach to the destination is taking long time. So how many times we came across this thing that at the entrance of the freeway, we saw that there is some sort of sign or some sort of blinking light that actually restrict the cars to enter the freeway very frequently. They give some sort of time interval. Okay, after that time you will enter the car. I saw a lot of in the Washington DC area, and I'm sure there are other sides of the nation also, in the other countries also. So that actually helps to reduce the work in progress, limits the work in progress to improve the flow. Because if there are so many cars on the freeway, then it will take a long time to reach from one point to another point. And this is a very nice example of the river. Sharath, you mentioned. Do you want to share about this particular example?
Yeah, but I would like to jump into a couple of like since we're talking about limit and work in progress and manage flow, right? Let's connect together and talk. I want to add more points in here, right? So ideally, taking a step back, most of us think, right? Our team, like in going back to the point that I said, your team member or you are yourself working on multiple teams together at the same time. Does it mean that you're doing a great job? I mean, see, if you're working on 20 different things at one single point of time, you're not going to add value to your customer very soon in the process, right? You will complete it, but are you going to complete it in a month, 2, 3, 1 year? How long are you going to take to complete this 20 or 30 tickets that you are working together, right? So that's when this limiting work in progress comes all together. As a team, as a person, I know as column, you can limit this. As a team, you can limit your work in progress. As a column, as a person, as a workflow, you can limit this whole work in progress, right? It's not important that how much work is, how much the more amount of work being done. It's important that how soon are we delivering value to the customer? What we're saying ideally is, whatever you start, complete it, deliver to the customer. Start, complete it, deliver to the customer. Rather than working on 20 tickets at the same time and then you deliver value to your customer sometime very late in your process where the customer will not be happy. So why don't we deliver this value to the customer one by one, complete it, or two at a time, depending upon what you want. You set these limits by your team and say, hey, as a team, we are only going to work on XYZ number of things at the same point of time, because if we do more than that, our value to the customer will be delayed. So you guys as a team needs to work on this to understand how do we define this work in progress limit? Is it per person? Is it by column? Is it by team? And all you have to think is the flow of work, right? When you set this WIP limit, how do we set this flow of work? So we have to make sure the flow, like in the river that you see, it's a very narrow river. The flow is very fast in a narrow river, right? If you look at a very broad river, which means you're working on so many things, the flow is very tough. Here, the flow of the water that you see is going very fast in this river because it's narrow and it's directional, and then it's very limited space that you have. It's going on fast. So what I'm saying ideally is you have to manage the flow and you have to increase the flow and cut down the excess work in progress and make sure that the flow of work from these multiple columns have to go. The multiple columns, which is called a workflow, has to flow in this ideally in a very faster way. So who decides what is the number, what is the magic number, right? If you don't know the magic number, you guys as a team have to define your magic numbers and go, right? So Jishan, what do you think? Have you beaten that horse?
Yeah, for the magic number, you actually mentioned a very good thing, and that's what we are going to discuss in the sixth practice, that how can the teams find out their magic number. But before going to the sixth one, let's take a look at the number 4. So the number 4 is making policies explicit. So this is, I'm sorry, from our side, we didn't mention the text here, but this practice is making policies explicit. So let's take a look at this thing a little bit. So what does it mean by making policies explicit? So if you know that what is your pull criteria, how you are going to pull the work, if there are going to be multiple works, if there are going to be work with the multiple priority levels, so how you are going to entertain that thing, if you are going to define your what is your going to be your WIP limit, what is your exit criteria for moving one state to another one, then what is your explicit policy, what is your policy. So you define those policies explicitly, so no one will be surprised. And let me give you one example for related to this one, and we will probably touch a little bit in the events. So if there are so many works in the pipeline, that how you are going to decide that which work you are going to do the first and which work you are going to do the second, what is your pull criteria, how can you pull the work into your Kanban, and then how can you move from one particular state to another particular state. So what is the exit criteria for individual columns. So this is what does it mean, and why we are doing all these things, and why we are even managing the flow and all these things, because we, as Sharath already mentioned, we want to deliver the value quickly to the customer. So the quicker we can get the value to the customer, quicker we can get the feedback. And that is the key part of whatever the agile framework and practices we are doing. Right. We have to get the feedback from the customers so we can adjust ourselves, we can make the course correction. If we do not have that feedback loop implemented, regardless of what framework or what practices you are implementing, you can call it whatever you want, but definitely you are missing the feedback loop, so you are missing the agility part. You cannot do the course correction.
Right. When you're not doing inspect and adapt, when you're not improving continuously, you are already doing waterfall, right? You're just doing mini waterfalls, right? You can call you're doing wonders, and you're not doing agile, you're not improving, right? So I think great point, Jishan. I think you nicely connected it to the implementing feedback loops, right? And feedback loops is ideally taking feedback from the customer or the stakeholder who is directly responsible for or indirectly responsible for the product, right? Like I said, in waterfall days, we have done great things, but we have delayed the feedback, right? And now also we delay the feedback most of the times. And hey, do I have to take the feedback every day in the evening? Do I have to do it 2 days? Do I have to do it 3 days? I'm not going to answer that question for you. Who answers that? You have to decide it by yourself as a team. What is the right feedback loop? What is the right time for us to take a feedback? Is it, if it's 1 day, it's 1 day. If it's 1 week, it's 1 week. If it's 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks. But ideally, you want to make sure that you are building something, getting the feedback, and making sure you're not doing the same mistake again, and you're continuously improving, right? So, and then not do the same mistake.
Yeah, actually, Sharath, you beautifully connected the last practices to this one. Right. And the last practices, as you said, I can sense that what you are going to do, that the last practices improve collaboratively and evolve experimentally. So you have to do some experiment to get up with whatever is best suitable for them. You might be surprised when Sharath said that if you want to get the feedback 1 day, but I can tell you one example. I was working in one particular situation when they were writing on the algorithmic trading. And in algorithmic trading, they have to define the algorithm to get the best possible result for the trading. And in that particular case, they are actually getting the feedback daily. So in that particular context, they need the daily feedback. In some particular context, the daily feedback will be too much. So they have to get some other frequency, whatever is suitable for them. So I saw there is one question, one statement written, the things, WIP limit and policies still cannot surpass the importance of work prioritization, which define the work that need to flow through this workflow. Yes, there are some techniques, and one of the techniques is the class of service. And we can have a lot more discussion on this thing, how we can use the class of service to do the prioritization of the work. So instead of going into too much detail, I just put one thing, that if there is some important work happen, then we can, based on whatever our policies are for the class of service, so we can work accordingly and work on that expedite or emergency or urgent things.
Yep. And we will take the questions at the end. And then, like I said, this is a very high level bird eye view of Kanban. We're going to deep dive into each of these areas in the upcoming webinars. We will give you all the tools and techniques required for you guys. So moving said that, I think we have already spoken about improve collaboratively, evolve experimentally, continuous improvement and experimentation is heart of Agile. If you're not doing that, you're not doing any practices, right? So it's very important for us to continuously improve and experiments, and then you have to make sure you give that leverage to your teams to experiment. I know that there would be some time that's gone out of your cup, but it will help you very much moving forward, right?